This is my review of the 13th episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm finally caught up since we got like a 2-week break. There's a New Year special they released. I'm gonna watch and review that, and then I'm gonna try to do like a season 1, part 1 out of 2 review, since trying to review the whole fucking season at once, it'd be really hard, because the way I do reviews of like a big thing like that is I'm gonna rewatch my videos to collect my thoughts on the thing, and having to fucking watch 26 videos to collect my thoughts would be like over the course of multiple days, and I'd forget everything I was gonna say. So anyways, we open episode 13 with some somber music, like looming over the battlefield, looking at where Mahito and Itadori have been fighting so far. We land on Yoshino. It's emotional and sad to see his dead, cursed corpse just laying there. And then we come back to the scene at the end of episode 12 where Nanami's questioning Itadori and trying to analyze the situation. Nanami obviously makes his plan, telling Itadori we're just gonna pound Mahito to death, basically. And Itadori has this scene where he's like, yeah, I think in Japanese it was like, oh, Nanami basically says, we're gonna we'll be sure to exercise him here. That's what he says, and Itadori goes, oh, like he's excited and upbeat. It's like an upbeat, happy moment, and it shouldn't be. Given everything that's happened with Yoshino so far, this should be, Itadori right now should be angry and distant. He should be, sad and just intensely focused. If he's gonna say yeah, it should be like, oh, like kind of deep and just serious. He shouldn't be upbeat about defeating Mahito here, because he's not. He's already said he's gonna kill him. Last episode we were talking about episode 11 we were talking about I don't ever want to kill anyone. Then episode 12 he's resolved to kill Mahito, so this is a different Itadori from the one we've been seeing. So I think that was an oversight. I don't know how it is in the manga, but at least for the anime, this shouldn't have been an upbeat yeah. This should have been like just distant, like he's responding to Nanami, but he's not really listening to him because he's just thinking about killing Mahito. That was, I think, bad, but I mean, it's very minor criticism of the episode, obviously. So Mahito starts thinking about how he's gonna fight them. He plans to focus on Nanami, because obviously he knows more about his powers. He's allowed to kill him because he's not necessary for the plans at all. And he perceives Nanami as a bigger threat because he has more experience, he's older, he's wiser, he has more, what's the word I want to use? Refined power, so he's the bigger threat here, even though he can't actually kill Mahito. And he creates like an extra eye in his hand to watch Itadori, which I thought was pretty cool. Once again, there's a huge focus on hands and eyes in Jujutsu Kaisen for whatever reason. He starts thinking about what he wants to do to fight them, and he creates like a big blade on arm, basically turns his arm into a blade, and he exchanges some slashes with them, and then Mahito jumps in the air and he turns into a bunch of spikes. It seems like he's trying to separate the two of them with that particular move. The animation of the clash looked really good. I think it's a big improvement over the first fight between Nanami and Mahito, because back in that episode I said some of the scenes looked weird, some of the posing looked awkward. They weren't animated poorly, but some of just the art, if you like froze it at certain times, it just looked weird. This was a lot better, I think, a lot more smooth or whatever. When he's in the big spike form, he actually looks like a sea urchin, because sea urchins, have like the core, and then they have all their tendrils. I don't know what they are. I think they're nerve endings. I'm not sure, but that's what he looks like. Itadori Nanami begins breaking off Mihito's extremities, and he starts kind of talking about, well, this form wasn't very good. They dodged it, now they're just destroying all my pieces. So he turns back to normal. And Nanami and Itadori try to attack him, and then there's a plume of smoke, and he comes out of smoke in like a child form, which I didn't understand. I guess he shrunk to avoid their attack. I'm not really sure. It's really weird. Mihito basically says if Itadori hits him once really good, it could kill him, which is interesting because you would assume Mihito would be a lot stronger than Itadori, but doesn't appear to be the case. Mihito spits out a bunch of cursed humans and begins turning them into curses. He's exploiting Itadori's reluctance to kill people by sending them after him because they're obviously cursed humans. So he sends them after Itadori. And they kind of chase him off to the school while Mihito continues attacking Nanami. One jumps on him and says, "Let's play." So it would appear that these three were children at one time. But we aren't really confirmed on that. And then another one that's attacking Itadori, because remember, they have to listen to Mihito's orders, and Mihito's orders were to kill him. It's like holding Itadori down, but it asks him to kill it, and you kind of see him sad, and then we cut back to Nanami and Mihito. Mihito has Nanami pinned up against the wall with a big hand, and he clearly very easily defeated Nanami on his own. Which means that Mihito has not only analyzed Nanami's power and found a way to counteract it, but he's refined his fighting techniques and become a lot, if not just a much better fighter, more powerful as well, because he off-screens Nanami as soon as they're alone. As much as he knows about Nanami's power, Nanami knows about his, and yet Nanami can't do shit to defend himself against Mihito, which is just surprising. So he's about to kill him, and then Itadori comes down and punches Mihito's hand, saves Nanami. Mihito kind of smiles and gets excited, but in that he gets completely distracted and loses track of Nanami. Nanami comes up behind him and hits him, and then they just begin pummeling him. Itadori's punching him, Nanami's cutting him, and he's just getting all kinds of fucked up, and he's sitting there kind of having this internal monologue where he's like, I'm being overwhelmed. Is this what it feels like to die? And he's not necessarily scared, he's kind of excited. He says this is perfect inspiration, because he's having a moment where he's coming to death and he has to dig deep to find resolve to live. And I thought this was interesting because this is kind of like a reverse shonen hero moment, where your shonen hero will be close to death and he'll find his resolve and then power up to survive and defeat his enemy. Mihito is doing just that. He has to find his resolve to power up and defeat Nanami and Itadori. And that's literally like a reverse shonen moment. It's kind of crazy. And he does just that. He kind of raises his arm, or his head up rather, and these arms are seen in his mouth, and he performs a domain expansion because he's in this super emotional moment. Well, in this super emotional state. And yeah, it's basically his I don't want to die scene. There's a fuck ton of hands. Nanami and Itadori jump back. There's hands fucking everywhere. There's hands going all over the place. There's hands like this and hands like this. There's just hands fucking everywhere for whatever that means. I guess it's, I don't know, the mangaka really likes hands. It's obviously the hands for Mihito specifically are because he performed idol transfiguration with his hands, but it's just fucking hands everywhere. And he calls this domain expansion the self-embodiment of perfection. Very crazy scene. It closes up. Nanami is like, Itadori's like outside of it. Nanami's trapped inside of it. Domain expansion obviously leaves things in like a black orb. And there's like, once it's actually closed, there's like arms that are stretched out and like holding each other with their hands. It's really bizarre to see. And Mahito's very clearly pleased with his newfound power. He's very excited to use this and experiment with it and stuff. And then we get to the opening of the episode, and I thought, like, wow, that was less than 4 fucking minutes for all these things to happen. I mean, that's fucking crazy. I was just pausing and writing and pausing and writing. I was like, Jesus Christ. In under 5 minutes, there's just so much to talk about with this fucking scene. Because remember, I watch anime for fights, and this was just like insane shit happening all over the fucking place. It's a hell of a fight. I just wish we didn't have to wait a fucking week to see half of it and then the other half. You know, I really just wish we could get to a point where we have a fight at the beginning of the episode and go all the way through. So then the opening ends and Itadori's outside the domain like I talked about, and he starts pounding on it and punching at it. And it's seemingly not having very much effect. Nanami goes on this tangent about how domain expansion is the ultimate power of Jujutsu, and he was never able to achieve it. I don't even know what his domain expansion would be. I guess he'd create a domain, and the person that's in it, just all over their body would be 7 threes, and he could just, at a whim, just decide to sever them all over the place. And it'd just be like, it just cut them to pieces, and they'd just be like I don't know, it would cut them probably on an atomic level, because there would just be like 7 threes of every size imaginable on every aspect of their body, I guess. That would be my guess of what it is. Because his power is already fucking insane, and that's the only way that, based on how we've seen domain expansion like used, that's how I would see it being used for him. He goes on a tangent, an inner monologue, talking about how Mahito's domain is going to work, that essentially everything inside of the domain is an automatic one hit, because the person's power is basically amplified by it. And so in the case of Mahito, anything inside the domain he can just transfigure at a whim. He uses the metaphor that he's already inside Mahito's hand, basically. And then we get Nanami's backstory, and we see he's at a bakery. He kind of goes into this thing where he's talking about he ran away from his position as a Jujutsu sorcerer. And he kind of hates himself, it seems like. He's buying bread from the bakery, and this woman seems to know him because she knows his order, and she's nice to him and stuff, and he takes note of it. And as he's walking out, he looks back and sees there's a fly head on her shoulder. And he says he's not going to do anything about it because it doesn't really going to affect her life. It's just a minor inconvenience. We cut to Nanami's work. We see him working. He works with money. He's teaching this young guy about the money and telling him that when they get people's money, they're supposed to help them. So make sure you do the right thing with the money and stuff. And then his boss comes up and tells him not to be such a stingy person, just to have some fun. He's just there to make money and, enjoy himself. There's nothing wrong with that. Blah, 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 blah. Everyone there except him seems to be more obsessed with making money than trying to help people, which is Nanami's thing. He just kind of goes on this tangent where he's like, as long as I make money, life will be okay. As long as I make money, life will be okay. As long as I make money. He's essentially says that his life is directionless. He doesn't really have a purpose. And the only thing he can think of is just work and make money and then retire. He's kind of going on like the autopilot, bare minimum of what you do in life kind of thing. He really didn't know what he wanted to do. we cut back to the bakery where we see the baker sitting there with the fly on her shoulder, and he kind of asks her how her shoulder is, and she says it's stiff. And then Nanami kind of goes into this rant where he's kind of talking. He kind of confides his guilt about his job in her, and kind of talks about his views on society. He thinks that in his position, it's not really necessary for him to exist, to work in society. He says that his job is to take money from rich people so that they can get more rich. And he kind of says that the baker's job is more necessary than his, and yet she gets paid less than him, and he doesn't think that that's right. And then Nanami exercises the fly and calls Gojo, and that's kind of the end. She chases after him and stuff, and that's, I guess, where he comes into the story for Itadori. I know I've said before, I don't really want to talk about politics and social issues, but I do have a view on this that I want to bring up a little bit, because this is an entertainment medium and stuff. I don't agree with his view, because the issue with it is that if every baker was paid what Nanami is paid, then the economy would be shit, because there's so many more bakers than there are people in his position. That's true for everything. I've had arguments about that before, where like someone was saying teachers should be paid what athletes are paid, and I said that's absurd. There's so many more teachers than there are athletes. You would destroy an economy trying to have a system like that. And we're talking about teachers are like more necessary because they turn out students and stuff, and we were going back and forth, and essentially my stance on it was that a teacher has to do like the bare minimum to be a teacher, right? They just have a class, they send you your textbook, they teach you a lesson, you learn it and stuff. It's not like incredibly difficult to be a teacher. Now, I know it's not like easy to deal with students and stuff, but anyone can sit down and teach a lesson. My aunt is teaching my 5-year-old second cousin right now, because he can't go to school, obviously, because of the coronavirus. It's not difficult. As long as you as a parent can teach your kid how to read, you could just sit them in front of a computer every day for 10 hours, and they can learn all the information on the computer. So like, I understand that teachers are a job that helps, because not everyone wants to be an educator, but at the same time, there's a lot of them. And you need like, what, a master's degree or something? It's not like you go to college for 8 years to be a teacher. I've had good teachers and I've had a lot of bad teachers. They vary, and they're all paid the same, depending on whether they try or not. I've had teachers who don't do shit. In contrast, athletes have to perform their best. They have to be the best of the best, because they're in a competitive environment. Teachers aren't in a competitive environment. So while athletes might not be seen as necessary in society, they put in a lot more effort than a teacher. A teacher, they have to make a lesson plan, but all the information's already down. They just have to find a way to transfer it to the people to teach it. They have 3 months off of their work. Athletes pretty much have to keep themselves in top competitive condition forever. They basically destroy their bodies to be competitive and achieve all the things we want to achieve. And so that's my view on that. I know there's a lot of people today that like dislike rich people, and they view it as like that they shouldn't have as much money as they have because they don't work as hard as poorer people feel that they do, and I don't agree with that view at all. Similar to this, I think it's about effort. Some rich people, yeah, they don't necessarily have to work for what they have, but a lot of them do. A lot of them do have to put in a lot of effort, a lot of time to learn everything that they learn and do everything that they do. And when you, again, they kind of have to be the best of the best. They have to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do something that hasn't been done before, and you have to make it successful, and you have to make it work. You have to work at it to keep it successful and keep it running. You don't just get money. You have to keep making money, and you have to prove that you are successful to keep making money. Someone that works at McDonald's isn't really putting in that much effort. Like, you might try hard at your job at McDonald's, but it's not a difficult job. Just because you're the best McDonald's employee in the world doesn't mean anything, because you aren't expected to be. In a higher position, you are expected to perform better. And no, not all rich people had to put in effort, but most did. And so the view that they shouldn't be in the position that they're in, and someone who's poor should, is just flawed. I think most people's place in society is completely based on effort. I could make a whole video on this topic, honestly, and I don't know. Again, I don't really want to get into a social thing entirely, but this came up. One final thought about it. The mangaka who wrote this is a mangaka. He's an entertainer. His job isn't necessarily necessary in society. And I also want to be an entertainer, obviously. And that's why I'm speaking on this in particular. If this is how he feels, then whatever money he's clearly going to make a lot of money off Jujutsu Kaisen. It's a very popular series right now. It's going to be extremely successful. If he feels that his job isn't necessary and other people's jobs are, then he should go out and give them all of his money that he's making off of this series. And then he should live a very humble life in like a bare minimum living situation. Obviously, he's not going to do that, because no one who makes money would. Even if you've been homeless, if you all of a sudden start making money, you're not going to live a bare minimum humble life and give your money away. No, because you earned the money, because you put in effort to earn the money. And so I think it's kind of hypocritical to have this view, especially if you're in a wealthy position and you're not going to give any of your wealth away. It's bullshit. Don't complain about someone should have more money than they make, because you're not going to give your money away. You enjoy your money, so don't complain about the way things are if you're benefiting from it, you know. That's kind of my view. I don't have anything against mangaka. That's just my thoughts. I don't think he's going to go out giving his money to a bunch of bakers and tell them, you should be in the position that I'm in, you know. But that's my tangent about that. Going back to the series, here it says fly. Okay, we'll come back to modern day where Nanami's in the domain expansion, the self-monument of perfection, and he kind of accepts his death, the fact that he's going to die. And then all of a sudden Itadori breaks into the domain, his fist comes through, and then he busts on through and he jumps in there. And Nanami goes on a tangent about domains are meant to keep something in, not out. It's an ultimate trump card. It's a defeat your one opponent. It's like a graph where like you would put 90% of your durability on the inside and then 10% on the outside, essentially. And so it's actually relatively easy to break into them, but there's no benefit in doing so in most cases. And once Itadori jumps in, Mihito's able to touch his soul, and because of that, he touches Sakuna's soul again. And we cut into Sakuna's domain once again with Mihito there, and he tells him basically, I told you not to touch my soul again. And he does something, and it slashes Mihito up by his shoulder, and there's just blood going everywhere. And Sakuna kind of has an internal monologue where he says he's not really interested in Mihito or Nanami, he's just interested in Fushiguro. Everyone else can die except for Fushiguro. So he clearly sees something in Fushiguro that I don't see yet. This like hidden power that apparently is going to be extremely special and influential. I have no idea what it could be that Sakuna, the strongest curse ever, sees in him. But I guess Fushiguro is going to become more powerful than Gojo at some point. Like I said, his one move seems to just completely fucked Mahito's shit up because Mahito's just bleeding everywhere. Yeah, he's slashed horribly. His fucking eyes are rolling in the back of his head and shit. I'm assuming Sakuna actually straight up struck his soul, and that's why he took so much damage. But yeah, I'm not sure. Itadori doesn't hesitate to try and take advantage of the situation since Mahito is weakened. And he runs at him, planning to kill him with a punch. Mahito kind of talks about that he's extremely fatigued from doing expansion. He uses up a lot of cursed energy. But he's got one final idea, and his body begins inflating. Itadori hits him, and it seems like it's going to explode, and then it just kind of pops like a balloon. And then you see Mahito's over by a sewer grate, and he's like, turns into a goop, basically, and his mouth is up, and he says, bye-bye, and he goes down, and then Nanami shows up and smashes the grate with his attack, but it doesn't reach him, obviously. And he escapes into the sewers, once again. Nanami calls Ino, the person he left to fight all of Mahito's curses, and tells him to look for Mahito. He refers to him as the core, for whatever reason. He tells him to look for him throughout the sewers to destroy him before he can heal and stuff. And then Itadori passes out, finally succumbing to the wounds, all of the holes he has from being impaled so many times. We see Mahito, he's like barely crawling himself to safety in the sewers. He just kind of lays down. And he goes on another tangent about how Itadori is his ultimate enemy and he really wants to kill him, but he can't because he obviously has to free Sakuna. He basically says that if all of them die, it's worth it so that Sakuna can be free because the age of the curses will come. Which basically means he's willing to die to free Sakuna. I don't understand that at all. I'm going to need a lot more time with these curses to understand their motivation to die just to free Sakuna. They're like, they want to be martyrs basically, and that's just really weird to me because they're just monsters right now to me, I guess. I haven't had nearly enough time with them yet to understand the motivations at all. Then he starts thinking about what ways to torture Itadori, essentially saying that, going back to this thing where he's talking about he can turn people into a curse and then make them die, all in front of Itadori to just drive him further and further into despair, to give Sakuna more and more leverage over him. He refers to it as killing his soul. He can't kill him physically, but he can kill his soul, basically saying he's going to keep hurting him and taking people away from him. Itadori and Nanami are talking, and Nanami basically says, you saved me, and Itadori says, how did I save you? And he says that when he jumped in, Mahito touched Sakuna's soul. That's what made him injured. And Itadori doesn't believe that that's him saving him, that's just Sakuna, because he didn't switch out, and he didn't really do anything. And Itadori's kind of lost and confused. He doesn't know how to feel after having been forced to kill somebody. You know, like he said, it would force its way into his life, and he just isn't sure how to deal with that right now. He's also questioning his original philosophy of giving people a proper death. He doesn't know what a proper death is anymore, and he's not sure that he can give people that. Nanami tries to reassure Itadori that he's on the right track and he's doing the right stuff and he's still a good person or whatever, but it's just not that simple to get him over all of the trauma he's gone through. Itadori is clearly in a dark place. And then we cut to a classroom where this girl is remembering Yoshino, and she saw him getting beat up by the assholes, but she didn't do anything, and I guess she's regretting that. And then we cut to the teacher, and he's trying to punish Ito, or whatever his name was, the guy who burned Yoshino's head. He's basically saying you won't get away with what you've done to him, and he kind of goes back at the teacher like, you were too scared to save him, so what place do you have to judge me and stuff. And the teacher basically says you're going to be punished, and I'm doing the right thing now. I wish I'd done it sooner. The guy again talks about him, where's his punishment. He says it'll come in time. We both have to pay for killing Yoshino's heart or something like that. I don't know. Again, I'm sick of all this high school drama shit. It's a lot to deal with. Each story kind of finds a new resolve to not lose anyone anymore. And then we have the end credits and then the after scene credits where Fushiguro and Nobunara or whatever, Nobara, whatever her fucking name is, I don't remember, we haven't seen them in a while, Panda and the other two, they're eating a bowl of vegetables and meat, and Fushiguro kind of talks about that Itadori taught him how to make the meatballs and make the dish, and then we see Itadori with Gojo, and Gojo congratulates him on making it, and Itadori said it was easy, even Fushiguro could do it. So I guess Fushiguro's not a good cook. I don't know. It seems like in the next episode, or the episode after that, they'll learn he's alive. I'm sure it's going to be the end of the next episode, they'll see him. And he'll be nonchalant, and then they'll be shocked, and who knows what's going to happen. I saw the previews for the next half of the season. It looks like there's going to be a lot of fighting in this tournament arc thing. A lot of people gunning to kill Itadori from the other Jujutsu school. I wonder how the Panda and the other two from Jujutsu Tech are going to react to him, because he is the vessel of Sakura. And killing him would hurt Sakura quite a bit. I don't know. That's this video. Again, I might expand more on the idea of the social thing, because I do want to be an entertainer, and I'm going to probably make a lot of money from it. And people are probably going to look at me in that way, where why do you have money when I do something that's more important? I don't really want to talk about it, because again, it is a social issue, it is kind of political, and I just hate that shit, but we'll see what happens. Next up is the fucking New Year's special, and then the season 1 part 1 review, hopefully, all before episode 15 drops, or 14.